Hello guys, welcome back to movie reviews for the final episode of Series 13. Episode 6. In this one, we actually, this door bill is about unappreciated, underrated sequels very much. So, as the title suggests, I'll get through them now. So, first we've got is Alien 3. So, this is the first delve into the Alien franchise, of course, the Alien series with the third one, interestingly. So this came out in 1992. 6 years after Aliens, so it does continue where Aliens left off in a very interesting, different fashion. It has I chose Alien 3 because it's just interesting stuff, really. I think it's more interesting. I think bit of an art film, really, and it sort of goes places. It does. So the Sulaco ends up. Well, it's in orbit, but then it ends up has like a problem involving a fire actually, and the pods get dropped off. They have an emergency landing, and they end up on a planet. On this what's it called? Farana 161. It's called. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're a diehard Alien fans, please let me know. So they crash land. Ripley survives, but Newt, Hicks, and Bishop get heavily. Well, Newt and Hicks get killed instantly. They're pulverized and mangled in their, in their pods. And Bishop is just half there, sort of like. Well, he was damaged from the previous film, so he's still halfway there, but he's still a bit active, really, somewhat. And obviously, Ripley survives. She sort of gets known to the prisoners. And she inhabited the island, who are basically, they have like a chromosome thing, of course. That's all. I don't know, it's like a passive aggressive thing or something like that, or just do behaviour, really. And they sort of, they sort of are unsure, really, because they have a woman in their midst, of course. One of them is sort of intrigued, of course, which is Clemens, played by Charles Dance, who's the prison's doctor. Originally, well, most of these ones are sort of like prisoners, but they sort of end up becoming the wardens themselves. The doctors, of course, look out for the other people. It's like their own community, really. And obviously, asking where she comes from, of course. But also, it's an alien movie, of course, and so we get the alien, of course. There's two different versions of this, of course. In terms of this one, it's a quadruple alien, which has no pipes or anything like that, and it's more animalistic, of course, because it goes from an animal, it does, this time. In the theatrical version, it's from a dog, prison Rottweiler called Spike, and in the assembly cut, it's an ox, a dead ox, that's been hanged up for use for meat, really. So, this thing escapes, of course, and goes one by the prisoners, of course. You get Christopher Fairbank, he gets spat with acid in his face, and he ends up plummeting into a fan. And of course, he gets heavily mutilated, of course. You get Charles Dance with a sharp tongue going through through his skull, which is pretty interesting. You got Brian Glover as well, who remembers Rottweiler and also Kes as well, who's quite familiar, British actor, used to be a boxer as well. He ends up being taken, of course, into the vents. You got Ralph Brown as well, who's famous for Whiffling and I. Paul McGann's in this movie as well. Again, I think just a few years before he was in the TV movie, actually. I think so. Yeah, about 6. I think about 4 years, roughly. Donning the sort of skinhead look, of course, and he's still that sort of thing. But Charles Dutton, as well as Dylan, who I think in some commentaries, of course, for the Valverde broadcasting, I remember saying, it looks like a gritty version of Harry Hill, very much. Like a black version. It does, in terms of the glasses, really, it sort of looks like, you can probably put Harry Hill in there, and probably it wouldn't be out of place, really. You won't tell the difference. They just call him Dylan, and that's, that's the whole thing. It could probably just be so different. I hope no one does that. I hope no one actually swaps, because there's that deep fake thing, of course, that's been going around, of course. I can imagine Harry Hill in Alien 3, along with, interesting, instead of Charles as Dutton, you get Harry Hill instead as Dylan. That'd be just a bit bizarre. I'm trying to think who else is in the movie as well. Quite a few people, as well, British actors as well. Pete Postlethwaite as well, Pete Postlethwaite. So this film in particular is quite interesting because it's more of an art house film really in terms of its design. It's directed by David Fincher, which is his directorial debut. Well, it's not the film he's very satisfied with, unfortunately, because he had a very terrible experience because the producers kept changing it. Originally, it was meant to be directed by Vincent Ward, who was this New Zealand director who directed The Navigator and a few other was it The Map of Crossed Hearts or something, I think, and also some film with Ice Cube and Robin Williams and stuff like that. I don't know, he's had a bit of interesting varied career, but they saw The Navigator, Medieval Odyssey, and I basically think, he was the next one, it'll be an interesting one to cover, really. And he gave this idea of this wooden satellite inhabited by monks in space who are against technology. And they actually nearly got it actually, for the production base and like pre-production, very much near actually start before filming, really. It's like, geez. And if that version come out, it's like it'd probably be that'll take an extreme left field. That would Vincent Ward, that version compared to coming from Aliens to that one, it would have been very jarring indeed. I mean, that's what people would probably say. It might work in a different other science fiction genre or franchise, really, But in the Alien franchise, it doesn't really work well at all, unfortunately. So yeah. Then actually David Fincher sort of brought him as a last minute addition, really, like a sort of like a last minute thing, really. And obviously, it's like music video director, young rookie director. The studios will push him around, say this one, this doing, and he had his own ideas, really, and sort of try and emulate, try and bring something interesting forward, really. The stuff really works lovely. It's very has that sort of orange look to it as well. It's interesting. You've got a very interesting score by Elliot Goldenthal, who went on to do the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, also Spear. Just a few interesting films, really, that went on, really. Obviously, I think he, again, coming from this art house era, of course, what Goldenthal was looking for, was interesting, really. And the score for itself is very, there's a lot of interesting moments, very sort of experimental, a lot of percussion esque into it. Just, very out there, really. Elevated guitar as well. Some people probably can play that like has like a heavy metal vibe to it. In some places with the guitar, like just like thrashing guitar and stuff. It's interesting actually because it does work in that sort of look of the movie, really. It gives it some kind of a bit of an edgy vibe to be honest. It's a really good film, really. It's production, of course, and everything else. I mean, people look at the assembly cut. Because the assembly cut is better because it's got more material. Some of the characters are a bit more fleshed out and know the motives, of course, and some of them are just there. Whereas in the original cut, they were sort of missed out completely, of course, and some bits and pieces were sort of like why is he up in that? Why has he done this? Why is his motive like that? Why is he attacking that person? Why is he sabotaging everything else? It's like, wait, what? Yeah, it's like that, really. And obviously the assembly cut, which Fincher had no involvement in. It's like just there. It's like no involvement. He disowns Alien 3. Does a lot of people do like it. It's like a film that doesn't go back on and think that is actually a really good film. They try to do something and it's interesting. People shit on Resurrection, of course, and I can see why with that one. Really, but Alien 3, there is something to it. I think because I like it because there's a lot more British cast in it as well. There's all these famous people. I always thought about this. As an Alien spin-off movie, that can be really interesting. Have a lot of bold English actors like Brian Glover, Postlethwaite, McGann, Fairbank, Ralph Brown. That would have been Charles Dance. That would have been a really interesting film. Just like British male dominated cast. In a prison, that'll be really interesting, with the original, Obviously, we've got to mention Ripley's sacrifice at the end, of course. I would say the cinema cut's better, really. I just don't really, the theatrical cut is just like, really, not really just that sort of thing, to be honest. Yeah, that's what it. And of course, the music at the end, like the triumphant crescendo by Goldenthal is actually really good. It does give that sort of powerful, end to it. Like it's very obviously it's very inspired by Terminator 2 Judgment Day, of course. So it's like, yeah. But I think it's good. I think it's interesting. It's a very good effort. Even though the production problems and everything else are a bit iffy, of course. But I do think it's worth a watch. worth a watch. It's also, I do think it's underrated, really. I prefer, you know, Alien, I think is good. Aliens, I find I find it too, it's too popular for me. You know, so it's like, I do have to rank it down below. If I had to rank them, I'd probably say Alien, Alien 3, Aliens, and Resurrection, really, to be honest. I just find Aliens just too memorable, really, for that liking, really. And I know it's a good film, it's a great film, but it's too memorable, really. You know, it's too popular. Too much pop culture references come from that film. And there we go. Alien 3. And the second film we're going to cover for the finale of Movie Reviews Series 13 is The Crow, City of Angels. This is another one that actually, same with Alien 3, has had sort of a very good idea, of course, but also the studio's interference is like, yeah. So this is from 1996, sequel to the original Crow, which is one of my favourite films of all time. Brandon Lee's performance, the soundtrack, the look of the film, direction, of course, and the overall tone of it as well is wonderful. Sad. It's dark. It's full of action. It's full of action. It's full of sadness as well. You know, that's The Crow, and that's one of my favourite films of all time. In my top 13, if you have a look. It's truncated, but it's in that list, of course, and it's one of my favourite films because of those reasons, of course, you know, because it's Brandon Lee's last film. Again, really good, you know, it's a wonderful film. Courtesy of my mother who introduced me to The Crow. Fair enough. Yeah, really good. So let's go to the sequel. So this is quite an interesting one because I do think this and the first one go hand in hand, really. It's like yin and yang, you know, two sides of a coin, you know. This is a really true proper sequel to the first one. Of course, the only sort of interlinked thing with that is the character of Sarah, who's now grown up, and Gabriel as well. We get a new character who's Ash Corvin, played by a French actor called Vincent Perez, who's actually really, hands down, Vincent Perez in this film is fantastic, very good, gets that emotion, even though you can see his European accents go through, but his presence alone is phenomenal. It is wonderful. You've got Richard Brooks as Judith as well. You've got appearance of Thomas Jane as well as Nemo. You got Iggy Pop, and this is Curve. I forgot the actress's name, but she was the original actress in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in the TV show back in the 90s. She appears in as well as one of the main hench people, of course. I forgot the other guy who plays Spider. Don't really know, unfortunately. Really interesting because it's, you know, directed by Tim Pope, who is a music video director who actually worked with The Cure, David Bowie. I think he did a Queen one as well. It's a Hard Life in 1984. He's a bit of a prolific music director, very British music video director, and obviously the company Miramax found that he did a short film called Phone, and they were interested. I think, you know, he'll be right to direct it. You've also got David Goyer doing the script as well. David Goyer went on to do Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, and also helmed the Blade films as well, even directing Blade Trinity of all things. So it's interesting actually. You've also got Graham Revell who scored the first one coming back. Most of the people who worked on the first one actually end up coming back. You know, the production designer, the producers, you know, of course, the composer as well. You know, so it's very linked to, you know, it's very much. I want a sequel. I think James O'Barr actually was consulted on the film as well. It does take some interesting things from the original book as well, because you know, with Eric Draven's character, of course, in the film, he's a rock star, very much guitarist. Ash Corvin in this film is a mechanic, which Eric was a mechanic in the novel, in the comic. Obviously, so they emulated that. The original idea was to feature two brothers, actually, but I think that's what Goyer and Pope and some of the producers were going for, really, but they ended up doing it for a father and son. I think because it makes him a bit more emotional. It is more emotional, really, when you look at it, especially with the scenes, of course, when the flashback scenes when they're at this pier. You know, obviously the story goes is that Sarah has visions, of course, of a man, of course. Then, of course, she finds out that it's a guy called Ash Corvin, who is a mechanic, who him and his son end up stumbling accidentally on this gang bust, really, between Judith's gang, and so they're basically tied up and end up being shot. They end up getting a bullet in their head each, and drown, and end up being dispensed to the bottom of the ocean, really. And gets resurrected by the Crow, of course, and he does find solace with Sarah because she knows what goes on. Because with Eric, of course, so she knows like this crow's resurrected as a man. I'll help you, and she does assist him, of course. You know, getting the face paint of the crow, the markings of the crow, using his son's paints, and obviously he just goes and takes down the gang. And then you get to someone like Judith, who's more, in fairness, a very interesting villain, a really interesting villain, because he's a bit of, you know, sort of like a powerful sadist, very sadist, of course, in terms of like he dwells on torture. And you got this gang who are just basically go around and just menacing people around, you know, drug busts and stuff like that, you know, being a bit sort of loose and about, like with Nemo, who goes around to the sort of like porn stores really, and gets a bit of action, strip clubs, everything else, get a bit of action as he wants really. You also got Ian Dury as well in this film as well. I do find it hilarious that he ends up, what was it? In the scene when he finds that he's got a cronish, he later realises he's got a cronish chest and finds out about the mythology, of course, what Judith says, and he basically tries to friend Sarah, of course, and also the tattooist, partly the main manager, who's played by Ian Dury himself, sort of steps in and has been match really. I do find it interesting that Iggy Pop and Ian Dury sort of had a little tussle with each other in this film. I do find that very fascinating. You know, it's quite an interesting little tidbit. It's just a really good film, really. This sequel, I haven't seen it for a while. Then I've gone back to rewatch it, and I found it just really good because it's a very sort of atmospheric film as well. Very sort of, you know, it does use the Day of the Dead as well, of course, and also reuses cues from the first one by Graham Revell, who actually adds a flamenco guitar onto the music itself, like sort of puts it on it. Really good stuff. Again, builds up the emotion as well. I mean, it works lovely. It does. In both films, you know, those sort of like the scenes, of course. I think that sort of music that sort of resonates through The Crow, and this one, it does very nicely. It does. It's really good. So this film was directed by Tim Pope and by David S. Goyer, produced by done by Miramax as well, the Weinstein's company, yes. And the Weinsteins have their foot in the door with this one, put their fingers in it, and it's like they've edited. It was heavily edited, this film, of course, because there was meant to be more emotional core, a lot of interesting stuff was meant to be included, of course. But the Weinsteins just make it a bit more like the first film, and you get something out of it really. And yeah, I would have loved to see the extended cut if they actually ever do something like that. I doubt that really, but having with what the Weinsteins are going through at the minute, it's like I wouldn't see anything like that anytime soon, really. You know, but I do think it's a wonderful sequel. I think, you know, this and The Crow, phenomenal. Salvation and Wicked Prayer, I just like, funny enough about that, because when I just knew about The Crow, the only sort of sequel I saw on the shelves beforehand was Wicked Prayer. I never saw Wicked Prayer after The Crow. I was assumed it was like, oh, there's a sequel to this, The Crow. I never knew that, of course. And I watched the trailer. It was actually the City of Angels trailer. And I got mixed up. I got City of Angels and Wicked Prayer mixed up, really. So it's like, you know, I thought, oh, it's Ever Furlong. Yeah, it looks pretty good actually, but it never really clicked. It never clicked until I looked at the DVD again, and like, oh, it's on that one. And also you can see him just like, well, it's not really him. It's some guy called Vincent Perez on here, and yeah, from there really. I do have to say that Salvation and Wicked Prayer are not the very best ones. Of course, they're direct-to-video DVDs, of course, from 2000 2006. Just so you know that. Eric May Best and Ever Furlong. Not really the best ones, I don't think so. Looking back on it, though, it's like, I have interesting casting, of course. You know, because you've got Kirsten Dunst in this one. I think Fred Ward's in Salvation. You've also got David Bennett. Was it Bonanza? And Tara Reid, Dennis Hopper, Macy Gray. So it's a bit of an interesting thing, really, in that one. But I do think this and The Crow are sort of the better ones, of course. Like, I see these two as the main sort of films to go on. And they're great, you know. This sequel, give it a watch, see what you think. But I really enjoy it. You know, again, underrated sequel, of course. You know, and both these were, I guess, again, production issues as well, because of the producers and the studios as well. So, there we go. Alien 3, 1992, and The Crow, City of Angels, 1996. Thank you guys for watching. As always, see you for the next video, and goodbye.